Three, two, one. Okay, everyone. So we have been vindicated yet again, thanks to a document production that finally came from UNC Health. Thanks to the amazing work here of Dr. Nancy Anderson, who actually was a resident at UNC and was trained at Duke. So welcome, Nancy. How are you?
All right, good.
Good. So first of all, let's put up the original story that we ran, just so there's no misunderstandings here. All right, so here we go. You can see that this is the story that we ran. It was back in May, and we got a lot of hits on this. I think we had 8 million reads on this story of ours. Transgender toddlers treated at Duke, UNC, and ECU, top med schools in the state, are now transitioning toddlers and training future primary care doctors on how to engage in experimental treatment. And we're about to show you that, ECU finally capitulated, gave us the documents, showed that we were telling the truth, and now UNC. So let's just stop right here. 2-year-olds at Duke, and we're just going to be, Nancy, talking today about the 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. Now, just to keep in perspective, North Carolina has 2 public teaching hospitals. That would be ECU and UNC. So both of the taxpayer-funded entities hopefully were, not are doing now, offering to see patients this young. And so let's skip down to UNC and let's talk about what we really said. UNC, children as young as 3 can be evaluated for gender dysphoria. The clinic states it practices gender-affirming care or gender transitioning. That's what it really means on its intake form. Okay, everybody got it? So just take a good look at it. And now I'm going to put up what we got from the document production of about, roughly 550 documents. This is what we got from the internal documents. Mm-hmm. Now we see that we always have the facts before we go to print, but it shows, Nancy, what the facts were before we went to print.
Yeah, this was from February, so before your story came out. It's an internal email, and for some context, this document was a proposal to put into the Department of Pediatric's annual 2022 report, which is news about what the department's been doing financially in all their sub-departments, et cetera. And this document was created by the communications director for the pediatric department. It was sent to Nina Jane, the co-founder of the Gender Wellness Pediatric Clinic, and was asked for her approval. And initially, Jane approved it, including the age ranges. She had very minor corrections, but otherwise the age ranges remained the same, and essentially approved it, but then thought about it for a second and said, saying, hey, is this document going to be made public, or what exactly is this going towards? Communications director explained that it's an annual report that to highlight their work, that it is public, that it's not behind a password protection. And after understanding that, fully understanding that, Dr. Jane, who co-founded the clinic, responded, well, in that case, maybe I would prefer not to include it. I don't want to bring attention to our specific patient population. That's what Gail said.
You know why?
Yeah. So Dr. Jane approved that document. It's not like that document was pre-approved or something like that. What's on there was what they do. But Dr. Jane wanted to hide it from the public because she did not want to bring attention to the age population that they treat.
So Dr. Jane is a pediatric endocrinologist, is that correct, over at UNC, who pretty much heads the program and treats very young children. Is that right?
Yeah, so she co-founded the clinic in 2017 that specializes in quote unquote gender wellness, which is gender care, as defined by WPATH.
So we're throwing a lot of acronyms in there and a lot of people. So WPATH we'll get to in a minute. But suffice to say that behind the scenes, there was planning to lie to the public. This is a taxpayer-funded medical school, one of 2 medical schools, planning to lie to the public because they knew if the public found out, and it did, what their reaction would be. Now, Nancy, after we published this story, after you and I did a series of I think maybe we even went live that night that we published the story. And after the social media was shared over and over, UNC, ECU, and Duke came out basically with a fatwa all at the same time saying that we were full of it. We're extremists. We're making it up. So let me put this right up here on the screen. This was from UNC. The false information circulating on social media related to gender care. It's false. It's not false. It's not false. Because let's put up again. This is from their own internal documents. This is gender-affirming care. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, guys, they consider gender-affirming care psychological. Look at this slide right here. So they think a medical intervention, and I do too, is psychological, and that's apparently what they're doing with 3-year-olds. Okay, so that was UNC Health. We already know. Okay, this is actually this yellow. This is from UNC Health as well. We got the documents. We don't go to print unless we have them. So we had the internal documents before we went to print, right? So we knew, but this is what they're up to. ECU lost its SHIT as well and put up lies, damn lies. Now we have 29,000 documents from ECU that proves this. Is it 500 aren't enough? But they're offering that. They're offering this care. Now, this is also the primary reason why North Carolina passed a law, HB 808, that forbids treatment of children with puberty blockers, apparently given at 8 years old, surgeries, and psychological care.
Yep. Yeah, and I have always said, and you too, Sloan, have always been careful. I have never found any evidence, nor do I think that Duke or ECU are offering surgeries to minors under 18. I believe them. It's consistent with what their internal documents say, with what their doctors say in their presentations. For UNC to accuse us of saying that is false on their part. We've never said that. Gender-affirming care is a very specific method of care as defined by WPATH as transing, which includes social, medical, surgical, or legal approaches to a person believing that they're another sex.
Let me stop you right there. So WPATH, guys, it's the world body of transgender medicine, and it's a bunch of activists, and they say, okay, we allow for anything goes, anything you want to do, but we don't even have to get WPATH involved, Nancy, because in the own documents of ECU and the own documents of UNC, they define it.
Yes, that's true.
Themselves.
They refer to standards, and the standards they use, the standards.
There ain't no standards.
But the body that they refer to, that they say they're taking direction from, is WPATH. So when UNC refers to standards regarding gender-affirming care, they're referring to this organization, which I personally believe is more of an activist organization than a medical one.
They admit it.
But yeah, but even outside of WPATH, UNC and ECU's own documents define gender-affirming care as other, not necessarily surgery. It involves other methods, including psychological, social transition, that type of thing.
Yep. That's right. And that is a brainwashing. You've heard of conversion therapy. The left has nothing but hammer the hell out of us with that. And conversion therapy is getting someone who's gay to believe that they're not gay, right? And that is outlawed by executive order in this state by Roy Cooper and many others. However, this is conversion therapy, telling children that they're born in the wrong body and then get them very quickly into a medicalized treatment. So let's shift gears right quick and let's put up the stories that were written to say that we are lying. So ECU and UNC being the liars that they are. These are public health terrorists, actually. They're obliterating trust in public health by these lies. So let's put this one up here. So this is saying that we are lying about children being trans at 2, 3, and 4 years old. Now we know that's not true. And what they do here is say they are not doing surgeries on children. Now, everyone knows, including them being the disingenuous boobs that they are, that we have never said surgery. They've said it, and they keep saying it so much, it does make you wonder, right? But we've never said that. And so this is another example of us paying for organizations that are doing harm. We're going to show you that in a minute, that are doing harm, and they're lying about it. And it's a lot like folks were upset with the gain of function lab at UNC as well, and the cover up around that. It's not the same, right? But it still lies in cover up, Nancy.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed. I mean, I went to undergraduate at Duke University and graduated from there, where I went through the pre-medical program and all of that. I went to surgery residency at UNC and became a board certified surgeon thanks to the great training at the time in surgery there. I have allegiances to these universities. I want them to succeed. I want them to serve the public. I want them to be thought of as trustful. I want people to believe in them. But I will confront and ask questions when I feel like they aren't being honest. It's a reflection on my training. And I know so many other doctors and medical professionals who do not agree that this should be done with kids, gender affirming care, and they're too scared to speak out because these institutions squash their voices. And it's just not okay, which is why I speak out. So I don't do it just because I have an allegiance to these programs. I want these programs to succeed, but not in this way, not by lying to the public.
Well, yeah, I mean, they will talk trash about them. They will trash them and try to cancel them, because let's talk about the internal documents that we received, and let's just, drill down on UNC, the kind of things that they did to us. So first of all, we learned that they hired a crisis PR firm to observe my account, in particular, my social media accounts, and to gather intel on me and what I was saying. And I wonder how much money, how much taxpayer dollars were spent trying to monitor me and try to watch me and try to censor me, actually, and try to shut down and destroy the truth. These crisis PR firms, and say, they don't come cheap. They can be in the tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, to try to do damage control in their image. And some of the things they said about us, I bet you they wouldn't say to our face. I'll tell you that right now. Let's put one up about Sarah. See, Sarah heads the women's psychiatry program at UNC, and she trains psychiatrists, future psychiatrists, to deal with women. Now, Sarah has called us extremists, and realize that we're extremists for telling the truth, and they're not extremists for telling the parents of 3-year-olds that they're born in the wrong body and they're transgender. Think about that for a minute.
It's totally backwards, to call us extremists because we ask questions and express an opinion that we don't believe that this is appropriate, which by the way is completely justified if you look at what's going on in Europe and the backlash with the Tavistock clinic and the amount of damage they did there. And now those countries are recognizing that gender affirming care may not be, the best.
It's not. It does a lot of damage, and people suppress that too, just like with
UNC has not brought them up once, not in any of their diversity newsletters, not in any of their email articles to each other. It's all pro support of gender affirming care. No one brings up any questions coming out of Europe. No one mentions it. It's as if it never even happens, which is very concerning.
Well, they have an America first view on this. In other words, all they're doing over at UNC, ECU, and the rest is saying only the research that comes out of the US is relevant. What's been going on at Tavistock, which, by the way, guys, that's a clinic in Europe that's been closed. It's the oldest transgender children clinic in the world, actually, after 30 years of being in operation and having studies that show that this type of medicine is predatory, it's permanent, and it's built on lies. So after that, the clinic closed down, but it's as if they're America firsters, Nancy. They only think the manufactured evidence here from Pfizer and others are the only relevant studies out there.
Yeah, but then as soon as one starts asking questions, for example, I sent in a question asking about treatments and age delineations, very objective question, very transparent, said I was a surgery resident there, said I write some articles, sent them the articles, sent them the links to what I was asking about, was sent up to their communications director, and they were told not, and the doctors were told, by no means should you respond to this person.
It's, yeah.
And to call with any other questions. Obviously, they didn't want to put it in writing, whatever they wanted to say about me. So here they are, we're acting out in good faith, trying to find answers. This is what you're putting out to the public, UNC. This is concerning. Can you please tell us what this means? Meanwhile, they refuse to answer, refuse to enter into any discussion, turn around on internal memos, call us extremists, call us perpetuating misinformation. But they're the ones putting the information out there, and they're not willing to answer any questions.
But they knew, this head of the program, they knew they weren't supposed to be treating 3-year-olds. That's why they wanted to hide it in the annual report. That's why they wanted to put somebody on my ass to shut me down. That's why they came out and issued this letter from the lawyer. That's why they took the website down. And that's why they probably had their lobbyists make this outrageously undemocratic law that's been put in the budget that will stop any public access to things like contracts, any things on future programs, any things on current programs, any of the stuff we've gotten. Any mergers or anything like that. They want to shut that down. I can't tell you how anti-democratic that is. Let me put the laws up here for you so you can see. This is what the Republican supermajority has put into the budget and has been approved. And it's been approved in 2 areas. And I have to tell you, there are organizations that call themselves conservatives that have not said one damn word about this. Not one word about this. It's been us alone, and no one else. Let me tell you the kind of things that we wouldn't have access to anymore. We wouldn't have access to any of the things about critical race theory being spread into pre-Ks across North Carolina. We wouldn't have access to any of the documents concerning genderbread person and this gender madness being infused into UNC Pediatrics. We wouldn't have any information on the clinics at ECU and what they were planning to do to 29 counties in eastern North Carolina, how they planned it, how they diverted money from early autism intervention to, which has a 1 in 39% occurrence, to gender dysphoria in 3-year-olds, which has a 0% occurrence rate. We wouldn't know anything, Nancy, about the unbelievable resources that UNC and ECU used to skirt the truth. Remember, both of these institutions, public institutions, took down their websites as they were calling us liars.
Yes, they, part of this public records request showed, I wanted to find exactly who was behind taking down the websites. It was the communications marketing department who made the suggestion to the doctors that the websites come down. And the only reason would be public backlash from the story and to hide anyone, any evidence that they were lying in their statements saying that we were lying. I mean, it's so ridiculous. So all of the internal documents that I received, a combination of emails and internal presentations on gender affirming care from the family practitioners and from this particular clinic, show that they were targeting kids as young as 3 years old.
Yep.
That they knew they were doing it, that they didn't want to make it public, that you and I, Sloan, were part of an extremist group, that we were furthering misinformation that would endanger people's lives. But meanwhile, they were the ones that were hiding the information that was originally public, and because they know it's wrong.
Right. They know it's wrong. They lied. That was wrong too. Yet we're the extremists. I'm sick and tired of this. I'm monumentally sick and tired of it. What we have done is a public service for this state and this nation, quite frankly. And we're going to show you that in a second, how absolute derelict in their duty to do good medicine they actually were. But let me put this up. This is another thing that's going to be, the details of which will be obscured from the public. So UNC Chapel Hill has said, hey, guess what? Our public health department is going to receive, millions of dollars for the creation of the Atlantic Coast Center for Infectious Diseases Dynamics and Analytics. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's nefarious or not. I don't know what it involves. I don't know if it involves any more research, gain of function research. We don't know anything. Learn about how the center will support effective responses during public health emergencies. How are we going to learn? Nancy, we already know. It's going to be based on the favorable information they want the public to know, because the General Assembly, Republican-led General Assembly, the anti-democratic Republican-led General Assembly has now outlawed the public finding any information about this unless and until UNC wants to release it.
Yeah, it's very scary. It's evil. I personally think the budget should have been voted against for that provision alone. I know the leadership of the Republicans are touting the school choice and the restrictions on COVID mandates as a win. It should not come at the cost of this, and they should have voted against it. They shouldn't have voted for the bill with this provision in it. It's going to be extremely dangerous. I mean, my point is, even some communists believe in some openness via glasnost. If you remember from the 80s, this is beyond anything, and will prevent any journalist, left or right, and people on the left are very upset as well, from learning what's going on. And if you take what we learned from this episode with the gender-affirming care clinic for pediatrics, you cannot trust, at least based on this, I would say you can't trust what the communications department is putting out regarding internal activities, because it is completely disjointed with what we have seen from internal presentations and emails. So I wouldn't trust them in the future to change that strategy.
No, they're not. They're going to keep lying to the public, and it's upon the journalists. We are upholders of democracy. That's what we are. The public has a right to know what they're paying for. Look, if the government can do something for you, it can do something to you. It is our responsibility here at Education First Alliance to tell you what the government has in mind to do to you. And now the government wants to hide it. That is beyond acceptable. Everyone should be absolutely up in arms right now, calling your representative, calling both of your representatives, your state senator, your state representative. They have to know this has to be corrected in something called a technical correction. That can be done very quickly. It needs to be done. We're looking at getting legal representation to sue the government over this. Again, this is a major, they're actually at war with government transparency. I don't know why.
Yeah, the wording for the medical institutions is very, very scary. There are already protections in, to protect patient privacy and HIPAA and things. They already will redact certain things that are not related, that they believe are private. The extra wording, which includes quality measures, it includes new strategic initiatives.
Yep.
So you have no idea, for example, about the social justice task force from the medical department, where they were going to infuse social justice ideology and DEI into everything. And it was stopped because of the fact that it came to public light, and organizations wrote and said, this is against civil rights acts, you can't do this. And so that UNC had to stop it. It wasn't like they stopped it internally. It came from external pressure from public records releases, and that won't be able to happen now because of this provision.
Yeah. I don't know what Republicans were thinking. Oh, Sloan, why do you rail on the Republicans? Well, they're in charge. Okay, they put this budget up for a vote. It was they who put the budget. I suspect that it came from lobbyists. And again, there's another provision in the budget, which is absolutely outrageous. It would allow any elected lawmaker up there at the General Assembly to determine what meets their criterion for a public record. And that means past and present. I've told my colleagues about this in the journalist world, and they have fallen off their chair, and rightfully so. I think this would make Putin very happy were he to learn of this. I think it was inspired by Putin himself.
Yeah, it's scary. It's my jaw dropped to the floor when I saw it. I couldn't believe it. It's just like, which office allowed this in? Like, what lobbyist was able to sneak this in? This is insane.
Phil Berger is what I'm hearing. Look, and it was aimed. Look, like, we don't know why that was put in there. We
Yeah.
don't know that it was you and me were the reason for them begging for this law, begging or doing whatever, right? For
Yeah.
this to be in there.
Well, they're desperate to keep these things hidden. I mean, they hired, like you said earlier, they hired crisis PR firms just to follow your social media and Fox News social media and other social media stories. I mean, they are desperate to control the information. So it makes sense that they would lobby to put this in so public can't figure out what they're doing. They are that level of evil.
Right. Well, let me tell you something, UNC health lobbyists and ECU health lobbyists. I know you and I know you know me. I've seen you. We've seen each other. We're in the same sphere. We're coming for you. We are coming for you. You're not going to have the same amount of influence as you've always had, because the people are going to raise up and say, absolutely no way. Forget special interest. Your needs do not trump the needs of the public to know what their government is doing to them at these institutions. It's outrageous. So get ready for a fight. So here's another thing that we found out, and I think this is really important as well. And look, here, let me put up the email that ECU and UNC. I mean, we got the big dogs on our ass, Nancy.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah, the GC, the General Counsel for both ECU Health and UNC Health, got together after they went, I never.
Yeah.
Well, you have now. They got together and they wrote this email that to Fox News and said, you know, this is wrong. Well, they're lying through their teeth. Probably not surprising for lawyers, right? So let me put up my tweet. I put up, you know, this guy, whoever he is, grabbing his pearls, probably living in a $5 million home somewhere in North Raleigh, all in a kerfuffle about us putting the truth out there. He needs to be worried as hell because, Nancy, they've got family medicine residents treating minors with gender-affirming care. And I'll put this slide up. Looks like they made a bunch of boo-boos.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us what these mean.
So this slide comes from a slide deck from an internal presentation from family practice medicine at UNC. Certain doctors within family practice have been developing a gender-affirming care program to train their residents into providing, similar to ECU, primary care docs with the ability to prescribe hormones, et cetera, including the minor population. They coordinate with Nina Jane and the gender care clinics to learn how to do this and then train their residents in it. This slide comes from a slide deck where one of the primary care physicians, family practice physicians, can't think of his name right now, RuPaul or something like that.
RuPaul? Let's talk about
not that RuPaul, like a different.
Oh, okay.
Put together their experience so far in training residents and having this clinic for gender confused adults and minors. This person went into some of the problems upon chart review that they saw.
Okay, so these
problems.
Okay, these problems, you know, you're gonna have to translate right quick. So the first one is this informed consent. What does that mean?
So informed consent would be before you start a patient on a certain treatment pathway, you inform the patient of all of the benefits and the detriments that they need to know about before proceeding, and that you've talked and discussed it with them. Okay. So
if you get an injection, I mean, even if you get a flu vaccine.
Right. That you said, you know, you can have irritation at the site or yada, yada. You could be sick for a couple of days.
Sign that. And they have to have it on file.
You want to document in the chart that you had this discussion. If you don't document, it might as well have not happened.
Okay. So what's the next one?
You have to read it to me.
Okay, well, the one that really stood out to me, what's the checking of the genitals?
Oh, so that one, I mean, that one, honestly, it doesn't upset me as much. I think, you know, they're saying in a physical exam, the first encounter with a person, you don't necessarily, in terms of gender affirming care, if the person's interested in proceeding that route, that I guess in this case, someone performed a full physical exam, which included perhaps a pelvic exam. which these doctors are saying isn't necessary on the first encounter. I don't
Hmm. Okay.
really have, that one doesn't bother me so much, because it seems to me if someone wants to undergo potential sex transition, you kind of want to document, the
And we don't know, and we don't know if that one is a minor or not.
right. I don't know if that's a minor or not. The one that concerns me are the hormone levels that won't without follow-up, that were toxic. And the treating the 17-year-old who is a minor with hormones without documentation that the parent was present, or that the minor gave, or parents gave consent.
So I want to put this up too. This is from ECU. This is an email that we retrieved as a part of our request for information production from them. This also says the same thing. It's like, it's a very, not only is this experimental and this is off-label treatment, right? And then we've gotten a ton of studies in from Europe that is dangerous. Here's another example of not getting informed consent. And this is horrific. Not doing fertility counseling. And that means not telling a 13 or a 14-year-old, hey, and by the way, they can't consent. So they're not telling the parent, hey, this, and in fact, they admit it will cause sterility. And the reason they admit that is they do, egg and sperm retrieval, because it's almost certain that that's going to happen. So they don't get, maybe they do tell the parents, maybe they don't, we don't know, because they're not signing anything that says, yes, I know the risks of this. And that's, again, that's called predatory.
Yeah. And I would make the argument, having been through residency and having had to obtain consent in surgery all the time, obviously, that it's no excuse that these are merely trainees and residents. From going through med school, how important documentation is, how important full conversations are, how important it is to document those full conversations. So you can't, this is very basic medical stuff, documenting what you told the patient, positive and negatives, and making sure that that's in the chart, and that the patient fully, and the patient's guardians, if they're minors, are fully aware of what's going on. So there's no excuse for this. On top of that, the attending should be involved and aware and co-signing these notes. So at UNC, for example, when I was there as a resident, you could see a patient do the note, document everything, treatment plan, but that note had to be co-signed by an attending who said,
An attending is a supervising doctor. So if you have if you have like an apprentice of something, right? There's somebody supervising that apprentice, especially in medicine.
Right. So
they're letting trainees do it.
Right. So a resident is a physician. They are licensed and backed by, the medical institution UNC. It's just that they're not necessarily fully board certified, not necessarily fully licensed beyond like a trainee license. So what has to happen is the attending, who is the board certified physician, has to come behind and say, yeah, I saw this patient too. I agree with his treatment plan. I agree with how this resident assessed the situation. And I sign off on it. Or, in addition to what the resident said, I did yada, yada, yada. This is the basics. It's no excuse that this is going on, especially with regards to letting patients go with toxic levels of hormones and that type of thing.
That's
really crazy.
And you were saying that maybe this is what we're looking at right now. That might have been the stuff that happened in a 1 month time, not like these happen in a year.
It could have been, from the context of the slide deck, the slide before it says, hey, we reviewed the charts from the encounters in January for the following things like consent, follow-up, blah, blah, blah. And then they went to this slide. I did not listen to the recording of the speech, so I don't know what was said in the presentation outside of the slides, but the context of the slides made me believe that this level of complications or problems was just from 1 month encounter.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot. It's unacceptable. What's unacceptable is to have the how dare you,
right?
How dare you approach to us, like how dare you suggest this is dangerous, and we get a slide that says it might be a little dangerous.
Yeah, and I don't really have it's weird because the medical side of me is like, it's good that they're discussing problems that they're seeing, right? you want to discuss those as a physician. You want to bring them to light.
Let the public discuss it too.
Yeah, no matter how stupid it might be, like, it's good that at least they're going through and at least, pretending to care about, hey, maybe this isn't, we aren't doing the consents as well as we should, or whatever else, whether you disagree with the treatment plan or not. But the problem is the institutional response, and this communication director and other directors of various medical departments saying, Nancy and Sloan, you're the extremists, you're spreading misinformation. Well, here you go, having a slide where you're having untrained physicians, give major interventions, including hormone therapies to minors without documenting consent, without potentially parents in the room, giving them toxic levels, maybe adults, of hormones without following it up. So we're the extremists here. And by the way, this is very controversial medicine, and you're advertising it all the way down to the age of 3. But we're the extremists. That's the problem.
You don't want the public to know, right? And you want to hide it. You don't want the public to know. And then when the public does know, we're the SOBs. I'm sorry. I'm not putting up with it.
Yeah,
I'm not doing it.
I don't agree. They're unwilling to come forward and have a discussion and say, oh yeah, we are doing this. We're not giving hormones to 3-year-olds. We are seeing them. But hey, look, if there is a problem, we're addressing it. Or hey, look, we're trying to get better with our outcomes. Or hey, that's not what they're doing here. What they're doing is turning around and trying to decry the messenger as extremists, radicals, people who just spread lies, when that's not the truth at all. UNC could have worked with us. They could have clarified. They could say, hey, maybe you're bringing up some good points. This is pretty controversial. Let's talk more about this. Let's make sure the public has the full story. That's not how they acted at all.
Well, they don't have to. Let me tell you why. Because not a single media entity in North Carolina, including the ones that call themselves conservative, had our back. Not a single entity did a follow-up report. Not a single entity was concerned about that. You know why? I think because the conservative outlets are so in a kerfuffle that we criticize Republicans. Well, they're in leadership. Who should I scream into the wind here when the Democrats aren't in control? The Democrats didn't put that in the budget. So let me tell you this, and I'm going to just bring this up. There is no unity in North Carolina. When you're looking at the ones that report on this, who have taken the lead, who have gotten the documents, who have taken the slings and arrow, it's the 2 that you see sitting right here. None of them, nobody has followed up on this. John Locke, Carolina Journal, they do a great job, but they're not even out there about having these things blocked from the public view. And I take exception to that.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing great in terms of the legislator aspect of it, and the legislators being able to destroy documents, and they've written letters and formed coalitions, all that. That's great. But they need to add in and also bring it to the public's attention that the medical institutions, which I think it's even worse than the legislators hiding stuff. The medical institutions are going to be hiding their initiatives, their quality measures, their contracts, all of this stuff from public view. It is scary. They should not be allowed to do it while funded on taxpayer dollars. This is medicine, people. This is literally, the treatment of people's lives in terms of just not just individuals, but public health. After we've just gone through a public health crisis in the COVID-19 response, it is completely irresponsible. And I call upon all outlets to, not just conservative ones, but to bring to light the fact that the legislature is trying to cover up and cater to lobbyists who don't want their medical institutions to be accountable to the public.
Yeah, absolutely. This isn't a party thing. And I have long been frustrated that in this state, there has to be complete and total unity with the Republican Party if you're going to be in conservative journalism. And if you're not, they're going to treat you like an outsider. You can continue doing that at your own peril, and we will continue taking the lead on these very important stories. They're very important stories to everybody here in North Carolina, because ECU and UNC have merged, and we're going to stay on this. We're going to cover it. So lastly, I want to bring up this doctor, put her picture up here. She's involved in a lawsuit that has garnered, international attention with our very good friend, Prisha Mosley. Tell us about this, Nancy.
All right, so this connection just came to my attention. I had understood that Prisha Mosley had filed this lawsuit. Very brave of her. I'm in support of her. I recently read the lawsuit. What she experienced was terrible by these physicians, as alleged. I did not realize that one of the doctors named in the lawsuit for what occurred around the 2015, 2016 years at Moses Cone is a Dr. Martha Fairbanks Perry, who, interestingly enough, Sloan, went and was hired by UNC in 2017, and that same year co-founded the Pediatric Gender Wellness Clinic with Dr. Jane, specializing in gender-affirming care for minors. Now, one of the things that Prisha Mosley alleges in her lawsuit with her physician, Dr. Perry, who co-founded the UNC Pediatric Gender Wellness Clinic, is that she was treated with hormone injections without the parents knowing. And this was documented by Dr.
Yeah, just like what UNC does, huh?
Yep. So, UNC has not made this connection public. I would imagine they know about it. Dr. Perry now just left UNC, made the announcement. I'm not sure if she's physically left yet or not, is going to DC National Children's to head up or to work in the eating disorders clinic there. She's a pediatrician who's a specialist in adolescent medicine. She also has, I think, interests in eating disorders and other issues. I have no idea. I haven't found out yet. I don't know the specific reason why she's leaving UNC, if it has anything to do with leaving the state because of this lawsuit, if it has anything to do with the new laws enacted with not being able to treat minors with hormones, or just personal reasons. But it is interesting, the connection, again, that UNC hired a doctor who allegedly treated a minor behind the backs of parents, encouraged the minor to leave home, all sorts of spectacular things that you can read from the lawsuit directly. Hired this person to start up a pediatric gender wellness clinic at UNC. This person was involved in promoting it and operating it, etc. But again, we're the extremists.
Yeah, we're
lying to the public.
Jerks. Yeah, we're the jerks here. So I want to go back to something you said. You said an eating disorder clinic. Guys, I want you to know that it appears that this is a pattern. Let me put up good old Dane Wicker, another guy we drove into hiding because we're extremists here. The truth is extreme, by the way. The truth is extreme because this stuff is crazy. So this guy,
crazy.
Yeah, his specialty was also eating disorders. And see, what we've heard from insiders and patients is that they're getting these particular patients from so-called eating disorders. A 3 or a 4-year-old actually could be a picky eater, and I'm not kidding you, could end up being diagnosed with gender dysphoria and being treated. That this seems to be between that and patients that might be on the spectrum of autism. It seems like these are the children who are targeted and the families who are targeted. And now we have a theme going, Nancy. It's at Duke, and then just a few miles, I think 3 miles down Tobacco Road, UNC.
Yeah, no, and I think if people watching have the time to look up this lawsuit and read the actual lawsuit, it's interesting because Prisha Mosley was suffering from various issues, including obsessive compulsive disorder, major depression, but also eating disorders, and was initially seen by a dietitian and got plugged in with Perry for the eating disorders, was seen by Perry and her team of residents, whatever. And the first clinic visit, it was documented that it was gender confusion, issues with her gender identity that was underlying all of the other issues like the eating disorder and the depression, et cetera. They pointed specifically to the gender confusion as the underlying issue that needed to be.
They're con men. They're con men and women. This is a con. Again, it's predatory, it's permanent, and it's based on lies. And it's also based on censorship. And now we know Duke tried to shut us down. They failed. UNC tried to shut us down. They failed. ECU tried to shut us down, and they failed. miserably failed. And now they're using the legislation or legislators to do their dirty work for them. Again, extremely undemocratic. And you can tell I got an attitude today.
Yeah, well, I mean, how convenient is it for UNC if they can take down, if they get backlash on a public website or something, or realize like, oh, this doesn't look good in the eyes of PR,
And they've all taken their websites down. I want everyone to know they've all done that.
Yeah, they take the websites down, internally get to call people who are curious about it, who want to know more about it, like you and me, extremists and liars and all this stuff, and then don't have to answer to the public via any public records requests. I mean, how convenient for them.
It's a sham. It's a sham. And we're not going to let it happen. If it's just the two of you and me, we are not going to let this happen. You can rest assured this is a hill that we will die on. We've been through pandemics where we know that people were not being honest at all. Clinicians were not being honest. Medical journals were not being honest. The media up at the very top with the CDC, even the FDA, not being honest and being lied to. We will fight this. This will not happen in our state. We will make sure of it. We could use your help, though, to call your reps.
Yeah, and spread the word, and don't let the bullies, try to make you feel like you're the problem.
Never.
When you're just asking questions and trying to find accountability for where tax dollars are going and where these messages are coming from.
Yep.
Why they're not willing to answer questions. If this gender affirming care is such an amazing cure-all that's so perfect and wonderful and needed, then why take all the websites down?
The problem, right?
Not brag about them. Why not be open with the public about why not use this as an opportunity to discuss with the public how necessary this is? That's not what they're doing. Right. They're running and hiding because they know it's not okay.
Right. And I want to set another record straight. If there are a couple of other organizations taking credit for passing these bills, and I think we need a lot of help, right? We need help, everywhere we can get it. But had it not been for the very intrepid journalistic team that's sitting right in front of you today, right here, HB 808 would have never been passed. How do I know? Legislators have told me so. We were behind the scenes working it. It would never have been passed. Same thing with Parents' Bill of Rights. Same thing with the Fairness in Women's Sports Act. And it all relies on journalism. A lot of it relies on public records. We need your support. We need your support. We've never done this before, but I'm putting up a donate link right now. We need your support. We need to keep doing this. Honestly, we see our coalition building and building and building, and an army of two working these things, and an army of you working these things. You guys were able to do it. We're able to outlaw these horrible practices. And Nancy, they didn't accomplish their goal of shutting us down and shutting us up.
No, it's funny because, and I have to give you a ton of credit, Sloan, because you took basically one sentence from one article from ECU and you would not let it go, which was that these doctors at ECU knew that kids could know their gender at 4 or whatever, and dug, and because of public records, exposed a whole years-long plan to bring this experimental clinic to fruition. And it did come to fruition. They were bragging about trying to see minors and all of that stuff. I mean, it was incredible, and it was explosive. And in conjunction with that, showing the public these kids are being targeted at very young ages. They just are. It's hard to believe, but they are. And when you look at the information coming out of schools, daycares that are talking to 4-year-olds about being non-binary, school officials and board chairs saying you need to go home and talk to your kindergartners about gender fluidity. I mean, it all fits together. They are targeting. There's a reason why they say age range is 3 to 26.
They said it on us, and I want you to know also, we did it while Republican legislators were calling us a liar. Okay, we've already discussed Tim Reeder was calling us a liar. There's some a-hole out there who is on a radio show that calls himself a conservative. Henry Hinton called us a liar. Yeah, their U.S. Congressman, Greg, I forgot his last name, called us a liar. People inside of the General Assembly who were Republicans called us liars. Republicans called us liars to whitewash what was going on and to keep it going. Again, this isn't one party versus the other. This is about the truth.
Right.
We got the truth that we're party of the truth.
Yeah.
So
And yeah, and we've given them opportunity to respond, to have discussions, to be proud of, their affirming care practice. And all they do is run and hide and take these websites down and then lie to the
yeah,
public and demonize people asking questions.
they can run, but they cannot hide. They cannot hide, Nancy. So with that, we're going to leave you guys. So we covered a lot of topics. I urge you to, again, please support our mission. Please support what we're doing. Share this video with 10 people. I promise you, you're not getting the truth from other media outlets. They have a complete blackout on this story. Of course, nationally, we were covered. Internationally, we were covered. And we're grateful for that. But there is a blackout on this. People think that if you have an R after your name, that is sacrosanct. But believe me, that allows for a lot of bad things to go on in our name and behind the shelter of the public view.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, have a good evening and thank you. Please.